Hi, and welcome to The Network Effect, the show where each week we open up our little black book and bring you the best entrepreneurs, investors, and professionals from around the world who will share with you their experience and expertise in scaling businesses into new markets. Whether you're a large multinational company dealing with complex projects across different markets, or a fast-growing tech startup that's looking to expand for the first time, tapping into the support of others can be the difference between success and heading down a costly road of mistakes and trial and error. We've built a business around the principle of the network effect, where each new member into the network increases the value for all members. And we've been able to use that global network to help companies expand their operations to every corner of the world. And now we'd like you to be part of that network. So if growing through partnerships and collaboration around the world sounds like the right strategy for you, then stay tuned and let's get connected. Hi, and welcome back to episode 7 of The Network Effect. Asma, good to have you here again.
Good to see you again, Ben.
And you might notice we're one person short. Zane is off at the moment. He's off on holiday celebrating his win on the Great Country Debate from last episode. Not really, but he is away from the office today. So we still have an amazing episode lined up for you. Seraj and I are going to be discussing an interesting topic, and Asma's got the usual interview. But as usual, we just wanted to say thank you for everybody joining in the chat. We really appreciate it. Please always feel free to jump into the comments and say hello. Get connected with the people here, because as we've always mentioned, that it's a little bit about who you know, not what you know. So if you've got any questions or any thoughts on the show, we'd love to get your feedback as well. And if you ever miss an episode live, we are here Wednesday, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Always feel free to check out our YouTube, and anywhere you get a podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so forth, you can also catch up on episodes there. So yeah, as I was saying, we've got a great episode today. Seraj is going to join me a little bit later, and we're going to delve into the topic of digital nomads. It's one of the trending sort of corporate as well as almost personal lifestyle, very buzzwordy at the moment. The actual first mention of digital nomads was back in 1997, which, I mean, surprisingly at that time you didn't have any of the technology we now use, so I'm not quite sure how they pulled it off, but it has been around for quite a while. But we're going to delve into that topic, what a digital nomad is, what the risks are to corporates, but also some of the benefits, and if you're looking to become a digital nomad, some of the ways you can do it and the locations that are really open to this through digital nomad visas and so forth. So stick around for that. But first off, we've got another amazing interview today. Who are we speaking to, Asma?
Yeah, no, great, thanks. And what a week it's been as well. So we've had a really busy week since last week's interview as well. This week, I am delving into my own personal network of someone who I value really very much. She's been somebody that I've known for over 20 years, and she was one of my first clients. So, you know, it can't be even more special than that. So I've known our guest, Anna Wright, who is from Elemental Concept, as I said, for 20 years. She has taken me with her to every company that she's gone to. So if she's moved from her corporate career from company to company, we've gone with her along that journey. And then she has transitioned herself into her own entrepreneurship journey. And so today I am so delighted to welcome Anna Wright of Elemental Concept to the show. Hi, Anna. Lovely to see you.
Years.
Oh gosh, I was actually thinking about that, and I was thinking, no, it can't possibly have been 20 years. And then I was looking at it and I thought, well, it was actually back in 2001 probably, right, that we first spoke. And there was a problem, and we were solving a problem, yes. So gosh, time has flown by, but I can't believe we're still connected. We're still very much, you know, on that journey together, and delighted to have you on the show today to talk about all the things that you've done. And so, Anna, we've gone through this last 12 months, and so many people who've had corporate careers on furlough, having stopped working, maybe even sort of changed, being challenged to go back to the office. You had a very successful corporate career. So let's talk about that first before we talk about what happened after that. But, what made you go into international HR first to start with?
I think very simply, I wanted to have the opportunity to travel. I was young at the time. I was at the beginning of my career. I don't think I thought beyond the opportunity to work with people from different cultures and travel. That was as far as I think my thought process went career-wise at that point in time.
Like many people, I think probably at that time. I mean, travel was a big thing back then. I don't know if it still is now, but that's something we can certainly explore later on. So tell us a little bit about international HR. I mean, what did you experience? What were the challenges? What was the job like? Where did it take you? What type of things did you do during that time?
So I've had two very different experiences with international HR, I would say. I started in the oil and gas sector and was very much about mobilizing expats to all parts of the world, whether it's Siberia, Nigeria, or
Yes.
and it was all about managing that expat journey, and that was part of a big corporate. It was a well-oiled corporate. I was a small cog in quite a big wheel there, and that was when we first met, Asma, in that world.
Yeah.
And then after probably 5 years in that corporate world, I had the itch, and I moved into a completely different sector, but still within international HR. And that's when I moved into the technology sector. I moved to a software company that was highly acquisitive. So I had just acquired an organization in Europe, and so had suddenly landed offices in France, Belgium, the Netherlands. We acquired in Asia Pac and also into South Africa. And so it was suddenly I was going from mobilizing broadly American and UK expats around the world into actually managing local teams and helping to enable and harmonize and create a one voice within this very dynamic and diverse culture.
Yeah, no, very interesting. So I guess completely different then from, from the not from the oil and gas sector as such, but from the role that you had within that corporate to the other environment. Because as we know, the global brings its own host of challenges. So when you're dealing with one jurisdiction, it's pretty much known to you, you know what you're working with. But when you're thrown into the challenges of different locations and different jurisdictions, so how did you manage that? Obviously, within HR itself is a challenging role. If you are mobilizing people across different parts of the world, and then you're leading a team, because you were very much in leadership, in control of what you were doing, and I'd always seen you in that. So you were always leading from the front. So how did that pan out? I mean, was it easy? Did you have to grow your own teams internally? How did you manage the challenges?
So when we moved into the technology sector, so in that environment, I built a team. I acquired a team and grew the team. It was very much about leveraging the local knowledge. So and really listening to those on the ground resources. And I certainly made mistakes at the beginning, and you learn very quickly that you need to listen, you need to find your supporters on the ground, and you need to find your objectives on the ground as well, and really work with them to make sure that you can add value into their world and incorporate them into the new world that they've been acquired into. And so it was very much about internal networking, but from a legislative and compliance perspective, it had to be all about the professionals that you engage with externally.
Yeah.
In the oil and gas world, we were very fortunate to have a lot of in-house expertise, as well as expertise like yourself, Asma. It was very much an infrastructure that was there. You had your legal, you had your tax and compliance, you had a very big HR group that all supported you. I moved into an environment where that didn't exist. So I either had to learn it or acquire that knowledge through a network.
Yeah. And so just kind of thinking that through. So obviously within this, when you've got lots of different global companies going, you're acquiring companies. Was your strategy ever to establish new presence elsewhere, or was it always by acquisition?
So it was a combination. We established a new presence in South Africa, but it was acquisition mainly in Europe. with now that I'm part of set up my own company with my co-founders, Elemental Concept, we are building into we're setting up fresh into new locations. However, the success is all about having people on the ground that you trust and know. I think
Yes.
going completely cold into a new location would be very, very difficult. So our choices as we grow now as a company owner are very much around where we have trusted people on the ground that we can enable and support to grow the business alongside us.
No, that's great. And so I guess then going back to my original kind of thought process is you've had a successful corporate career, you've been leading, you've been in charge, you've grown teams, you've built teams. So then obviously changing and transitioning. I mean, I know I can understand when we've got COVID and why people are making those decisions, but you've obviously taken this step from a successful career to becoming an entrepreneur, which has its own risks and all its own challenges, completely different. So how did that come about, and what made you want to step away from that career into your own journey?
It's an interesting one that I hadn't really reflected on so much until we were going to talk about this today. And I think if I look at my career choices I made, I was working towards this. I'd moved from a big corporate, moved into a smaller, fast-growing SME, and then moved again into a consultancy, a tech consultancy, which was in that process, I got much more involved in driving the business forward, being part of that leadership team, understanding the business problems and enabling the solutions through that knowledge. And it just was that natural progression into a smaller setup that enabled a lot more freedoms, I think, as a leader in the business. And naturally, through my network and people I've worked with, it was a natural step to then step out and do it for ourselves rather than for other people. So not a prescribed plan, not something, if you asked me 20 years ago, Asma, when we first met, that I ever think I would be here today. But it just felt like it was a natural progression to do it for me and for my business rather than for somebody else's business.
No, absolutely. And I think it's actually, I can resonate with the entrepreneurial journey, because I think back then when we first communicated and we first met, people often ask me about that as well. How did you start out on your entrepreneurial journey? And I think when we met, you had this challenge or this problem that you were trying to solve within the company. So I didn't set out and have a plan either. And I think it was that problem that I was trying to resolve that led me into this whole world of entrepreneurship as well. So I completely resonate with where you're coming from. So tell us a bit more, Anna, about Elemental. Obviously, you've given us, explained how it's all started and why you've delved into entrepreneurship. But then tell us a little bit about what you do. What is Elemental Concept, the types of services you offer, what kind of technology you build, and just so that we can get an understanding.
So Elemental Concept is fundamentally a software consultancy business. We founded now 4.5 years ago. We being myself and a couple of other founders, we've previously worked together in a larger software consultancy, doing broadly what we do today, but for somebody else. And it got to a point 4.5 years ago where we felt that we wanted to be able to ensure that our employees were part of our journey and had equity and shares in what we were doing, and to have a bit more control of how we were doing it. So we branched out and set up Elemental Concept at that point. So broadly speaking, we provide end-to-end software consultancy solutions. We work very much from a business-led perspective, understanding the problems a business is facing, and then where technology can solve those problems. So we do a lot in terms of discovery and conceptualizing what that solution should be. Then we build the solutions with our in-house teams, and we support and maintain them beyond that. So that's the foundation of the business. And those solutions could be from a mobile application to a complex loyalty platform to a trading platform. It's full breadth across any sector. So we have clients in the education sector, in the financial services sector, in health and wellness. And I think if you name it, we've probably got clients within the sector. and we choose to be agnostic, sector-wise, because there's so many learnings you can get from each sector that then apply to the adjacent sectors. So our clients are the experts in their sector, and we're the experts in the technology, and that combination works very well.
Yeah, great.
So yeah, that's where it all started. Since we've launched, our model has always been anti-consultancy, really. So if anyone who knows a consultancy, the premise is that your revenues come from billing the clients for as much as possible. We turn that on its head and want to actually make sure the client gets value for money and only builds what they should build. So we break down every engagement into much smaller, take a lean approach into much smaller chunks. So we're only delivering what's essential to validate what their product is, and then iterate. And that enables a lot more innovation and risk in terms of trialing something new on the market, and that's what we love to do. So
yeah, sounds great. And so are you seeing new technology emerging, new concepts people are asking you to build or develop? I mean, has anything really dramatically changed or transformed over the last few months?
I think with COVID, there's been a lot more focus on digitizing businesses and seeing the opportunities to put a lot more enable their digital strategy a lot more. There is definitely a lot more leaning towards recognizing the power of data and wanting to really put in place a proper robust data strategies. So you'll see that there is always going to be trends, and there'll be excitements about blockchain in periods of time, and then augmented reality and other such. But fundamentally, I think we've seen there is a higher demand to invest in tech strategy, to engage digitally with their customer base, and to optimize the power of data.
Yeah, and the other thing I note that you do is you do actually invest in technology companies as well as a business. So how does that work? Do you normally go out and seek companies, or is it the case of companies come to you to help develop products and then you identify them?
Correct. It's much more the latter. So because we believe in long-term partnerships, and actually for us this is a marathon, not a sprint. So we want to build trusted relationships with our clients, and we want to share in their success where it makes sense to do so. So where we have particularly, it's more in the startup world, they will come to us with a concept and we will help scope it, challenge their reasons for building it, the business objectives around it. But where it makes sense to do so, we will look to take equity in doing a pass-par fee, and that way their end game and our end game are completely aligned, and we are both investing in each other for the future. And so that's we have 6 or 7 companies that we've invested in on that basis. And the foundation is always that we are taking control of the technology build. So we back ourselves. We know that we can do it, and we can deliver a solution that is going to work. So we are the tech partner. We will make decision based on the concept, the opportunity, but also the people. So the relationship with the founders, their passion, their knowledge, their investment in their business, their attitude towards it, all count in terms of determining whether it's a company we want to invest in.
Okay, great. And so, Anna, I look at you and then I think to myself, I mean, you're so diverse in so many things that you do, right? So you've been a leader in the corporate world, you're a woman leader in entrepreneurship, you're a woman in tech, you're a woman investor. Now, all of the statistics around that, there are very few women who actually lead on that front. I mean, you've got lots of women, obviously, that are doing extremely well. But time and time again, you see so many statistics and data that is pushed forward that very few women in tech, as an example, and developing tech, right? So, and also in the investment field. Now, being a woman and being in a full-time space with all these challenges, going across the globe, building teams, growing a business, developing products, investing in companies, how do you manage that alongside everything else? And share your thoughts on that side, because women in leadership is a big subject. And it can come in all sorts of forms, because we've got the corporate world, where few women in boardrooms. Then we've got the entrepreneurial world, few women in tech and few women that are investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs. So yeah, I'd like to just get more thoughts on on this subject as a standalone subject in itself.
So for me as a woman, I don't tend to think about my gender. So I think if I try to define myself by my gender, then I would perceive barriers that don't need to be there. So I've always seized opportunities. I don't like saying no, and I like to take an element of risk. And so I'm prepared to put myself into situations which may not be so comfortable. Um, that has led me to the diverse experiences I've had,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always worked with people that enable that opportunity as well. So I think I've actively chosen a path that means that it doesn't need to be a barrier, your gender. And I
Yeah.
don't really want it to be a conversation, really. And I would love in 10 years' time, when my children who are 8 and 9 are in the workplace, that the conversation's changed. It isn't a conversation we worry about. I I don't know why there's not enough women in technology. I struggle to. We don't have a very balanced team in terms of. I need
Mm.
more women developers. So
Mm.
um, please send me applications. I don't. There is just not the demand
Mm.
um, um, from coming out of university and then into careers in technology. Um, it's it's so in it's it's so much part of how societies perceive the roles of women and the roles of
Yeah.
men and the roles of technology. It needs to be changed from the ground up, from education, from how we talk about technology, how we talk about women in technology
Mm.
and men in technology, um, to make that real change. Um, I really I'd love to have the answers. I'd love to have a really clear path of what would need, how it would be. But I think the only thing that I will advise my children and any of their friends is to not look at what is a barrier, but what is an opportunity,
Yeah.
and drive that. And that's what I've done. I'm sure I've been impacted by me being a woman and the opportunities and perceptions, but I've never allowed that to be part of my decision
Mm-hmm.
making.
No, fantastic, and I think that's the way it should be. And I think some of us obviously have had great opportunities to be able to do that, but there are still women in different sectors in different places that haven't had the opportunity. And this takes me to an interesting advert. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a Microsoft advert, Woman Made. It was a very clever advert that they did actually a few years ago, where they went into schools and asked young girls if you were to talk about a famous person, who would come to their mind. They would think about people like Einstein or whatever it was at the time, and no one really thought of a woman. And it was called Woman Made, the advert, but nothing was made by a woman. And so whilst we say that this shouldn't really be a conversation and we shouldn't really be having it, and this should be a natural thing, that gender doesn't define who you are, you should be able to do what you need to do. But sadly, when we're looking at role models, who are the role models in this,
Yeah.
right? So who can young girls look at and say, I want to be like them? Because history hasn't got that many role models to show. So taking that question, taking that statement and just asking you, Anna, who is your role model, or whether you have many, and who inspires you?
So my role models are much closer to home. So my role models will be people that I personally know and spend time with. They are male and female, and I do get your point. There's not everybody has the opportunity
Yeah.
to have that network and have those contacts. But my role models, people that inspire me, are people like the CEO of one of the businesses that we invest in, called Chatterstars. And the CEO, she is an amazingly passionate, clever, the talent leader in her field, and is just very honest and transparent as well. And it's people like that who have the talent and the passion for what they do, um, and are very authentic, I think. So I don't really look beyond the people that
Yeah.
I know personally. I have friends, both male and female that are role models to me. I have my business partners that inspire me and have enabled a lot of my opportunities through their belief and inspiration. So it's it's I don't look to the boardroom and in other companies, possibly because it's not so prevalent and not so obvious who those role models should be. But that's been my experience, and I think that there is a responsibility for you and I, for people who are in a position where others can observe that you can be a leader and a woman and a mother, and be successful and see that. But it's giving people that real access, rather than it being such a far away concept. It's people getting into people's networks so they can actually these young men and women can women succeed.
No, and I agree. I think a lot of the inspiration comes from people that are not visible.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, right? So you'll see a lot of people out there that, people see generally in the media and in everywhere else. But whether they truly inspire in a realistic way for the next generation of leaders to actually look at them and say, well, I can achieve that. I think it's not relatable, and that's really what's missing, don't you think? So how can we help, or what advice would you give, say, to the next generation of women? I mean, how do we inspire them? What can we do as the female generation to bring forward the next leaders or the next women that actually can really bring about change?
We actually need to get to the schools.
Yes.
We need to get down to the grassroots.
Yeah.
And it's the opportunities to do so are there if you look hard enough and really just show to boys and girls that leadership is not defined by gender, that technology is not defined by gender, that entrepreneurship is not defined by gender, and that is actually getting down to the grassroots.
Yeah, no, very good advice, Anna, and appreciate all of that, because I know this is a tough subject in itself. It's not a subject we talk about enough, but I appreciate your views on it. So Anna, generally just going back to your business then, so what are your kind of long-term sort of business goals, I guess, going forward in the future as Element? Because your business has been 4 years, I think, in the making. You've got a long way to go in terms of building and developing and growing. I mean, are there kind of strategies that you're looking at, global expansion, for example, growing teams in other countries?
Yeah, so we are in the UK and Singapore at the moment. We will be looking to expand into North America as well, so we can create a truly global footprint. We are exploring looking at an offshore partner or establishing an offshore resource pool as well, so we can, because one of the biggest challenges is talent. And attracting the right talent and growing the right talent. And the other element for that reason is also looking at our own academy to grow talent within Elemental. So it's all about broadening the footprint. So it's a global footprint, but investing in building the right talent. So I think success for me will be that when people come through Elemental, they are sought after by other companies, and
Fantastic.
they find the Elemental talent. That's my goal.
Brilliant.
And in addition to that, we build our own products as well. So it's really investing and developing those products to be standalone as well. So I think you need more than one. It's a challenging world, the world of consultancy, and I think you need lots of opportunities and create opportunities. So having the consultancy with products and investments in our clients' businesses, those three streams will continue as we grow.
Great. And so what is your personal exit strategy? I mean, what are your goals for your future?
My personal ones?
Yes.
Well, I can't imagine not working. So it's, as I said earlier, it's a marathon, not a sprint for us. With this, we embarked on Elemental not to be a lifestyle business, and not to wrap it up and sell it on, package it up and sell it on in 3 to 5 years. We love what we do. I love what I do. So it will be about getting to the point that I can build the business to a size that I can step back a little bit and let others start to run it and step away that way. But it's a long way off.
No, I can imagine. So, what would your top 3 tips be for anyone who's looking to start their own business, for women particularly, in delving into technology? I mean, are there any pieces of advice that you think people should look at that perhaps people ignore or don't actually realise until much later in the journey?
I think the biggest thing that you can do is ensure you've got the best network possible and really engage in that network and really invest in it. So the network has been a real success factor for Elemental. Without that network, we wouldn't be where we are today. Making sure you've got a strong network and making sure the people that you go into partnership with, if you are going into partnership with others, which I would recommend because it's a tough, lonely journey otherwise, are people that you trust implicitly. So the network and the people are so important. And then also you need to be prepared to take risk and put your heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
It's quite a relentless journey. It's like children, really. Having children. Amazingly rewarding.
No, brilliant advice. Okay, so Anna, you obviously mentioned that you're looking at growing your business, and I think if you're looking at current times, there are lots of options, and businesses perhaps taking less of a risk in terms of investing in other countries where they don't need to, and lots of people looking at remote working and digital nomads, and I know Seraj and Ben are going to talk about that subject shortly after us. But what's your take on this? I mean, as a business, I mean, is this something that you think is going to be a strategy for you? And should companies be looking at those options, or is it a safer bet to go and establish yourself into a country because you have a plan in place and you don't want to waste time with dabbling into remote workers, and you'd rather go in with that roadmap and just start to hit the ground running?
I think it obviously all depends on your end game and your longer term objectives, whether you want to invest from the ground and establish your own entity or use a third party. From a resourcing perspective and the war on talent, which is always tough to find the right talent, and what COVID has done is remind people that you can work very effectively remotely. I think it's really important not to close your mind to creating a very global workforce, and doing that without having to take on the liabilities and the responsibilities of setting up an establishment in each of the areas. This concept of the digital nomad is one that we're exploring at the moment, and I'm hopeful that it actually just gives us more talent. And a more diverse talent pool as well, which is really important. I think the challenge will then be how you integrate those individuals into your team, your culture. But that's a challenge you have with whether you're hiring into one team in one location or globally. So.
Brilliant. No, thank you. That's really helpful. So hopefully we're going to find out a little bit more once Seraj and Ben give us a little bit more detail on the topic. But I'm really grateful for you being on here today, Anna, and very thankful that you've shared all of your kind of journey with us and everything else, particularly on the side of the female side. And I think some of us obviously don't realise how privileged we are that we're able to have these opportunities and pursue our careers in the way that we have. But also, looking at ways of how we can help the next generation. But I'm thankful and thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll speak to you again soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, and we're back. Seraj, welcome to episode 7.
Thank you.
Excellent. And obviously another fantastic interview there with Asra and Anna, and great to hear. I think we almost need to create a counter where every time someone mentions how valuable a network has been in their journey, we need to add a little point up in a box here somewhere, and keep track. So yeah, it was amazing to hear, and obviously great feedback for Anna there, or a great tip that obviously always be growing your network, because you never know where you might need to pull some value out of that and how life-saving or changing it might be in your business journey.
Yeah, I think what I really liked as well is right in the beginning, Asma was saying that they've worked together for the last 20 years. And the fact that, people buy people, and you when you trust someone and you've worked with them, then you follow them wherever they go. And that's also talks to the network. It talks to the network effect of, I know this person and I can highly recommend it. And I just think it's so great to see such powerful and independent women that are leading the way when it comes to business, let alone female leaders. I get what Anna was saying about you don't have to, she's a leader. She doesn't really look at herself as a female leader. But the reality is that we need those kind of role models for the youngsters who are looking up. Especially, there's huge opportunities within the UK and in a lot of countries, but there are also countries within Africa where women aren't encouraged to be business owners and leaders. So just the fact that we see it happen is enough of a reason. It's the same as at the Olympics recently. There's some nations who don't necessarily win a lot of medals, but the fact that their locals saw a person from their country competing does so much for the self-belief of what they can do. And I think this is really the Olympics of business, really.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely some amazing points, and again, another great interview to see there. I guess we'll just move, not at our most smoothest transition, but into digital nomads. So obviously this is another very hot topic that everyone's sort of discussing at the moment, and COVID's had a big impact on this. I think I saw a quote that the most dramatic and rapid shift to remote work has perhaps been one of the most potent trends impacting the way businesses operate. So I guess we're just going to go through some of the basics really and jump into. Seraj, what is a digital nomad?
Well, I mean, a digital nomad is. Am I a digital nomad? Am I, because I'm sitting in Cape Town, a digital nomad, or am I just in the Cape Town office? And I think there's the difficulties of pinning and identifying that, and I think that also adds to the reason why the trend is superseding the law, right? Yeah. That's really what's happened, and it's often happened that technology enhances a trend, and then chasing behind is the law trying to catch up and go, oh, how do we regulate it? How do we control this? And I think this is one of those amazing things that's happening. So I mean, a digital nomad, and you know some of these stats and things as well, is someone who just lives a nomadic lifestyle. They decide they want to live in one space at one point in time, move along, live in another. It's slightly different to the fact that you can have a freelancer and a contract worker that works. It's actually saying that you work for one company in one place, but you just where you wake up is different.
Yeah, so I've got the technical thing here, or one of the ways of looking at it is digital nomads are people who embrace a location-independent and technology-enabled lifestyle that allows them to travel and work from anywhere. So I think one of the differences with digital nomads and remote workers, so I wouldn't say you're a digital nomad, because one of the areas is they continue to travel and explore, whereas you're just based at our South Africa office. You're not changing your location sort of every week and so forth. I mean, just to give you some stats on digital nomads, this is based off the Harvard Business Review, but for America, they had a massive rise in 2020. So 2019, 7.3 million Americans identified themselves as digital nomads. In 2020, it was 10.9, so a massive rise of 49% there. The vast majority of that rise, though, was people from traditional jobs. So we've obviously seen COVID, and the almost forced ability to have to adapt to working from home has really untethered people from their offices. So 3.2 million people from their normal traditional jobs have basically transitioned into being digital nomads in the last year. And that's just in the States alone. So obviously worldwide, you can imagine this is going to be a huge, massive thing. Just to obviously give some context there as well, the top jobs of digital nomads, we're looking at computer programming, IT, web design, creative fields, engineering, and digital and traditional marketing as well. So very creative but technology focused job roles as well. And I'll give you one more interesting fact on digital nomads as well, that they have one of the highest levels of job satisfaction. 90% of digital nomads report they're satisfied with their job, and 76% of them report income satisfaction as well. So you're looking at people with advanced jobs, technical skills, well paid, well educated, and a great style of life, really.
Yeah, well, there's a but coming here, right?
Yeah.
Where it all sounds so nice and it all sounds so good, but are they breaking the law, Ben? Are they actually breaking the law?
Sometimes, yeah, and unintentionally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean these telecommuters is what a term that I've seen as well. Telecommuters is because you're teleporting into a place and being there and working and all you really have to worry about is getting your time zones right so that you are in the office.
At 9
if you're
a.m.,
working for a London-based company and you're sitting on the beach in Bali, make sure that you're logged on early or late or whatever you need to be. But it does add the complication. So I think, firstly, I think COVID was a huge spark to make it more possible, A, and B, the technology, how quickly all the technology has advanced to make digital and remote working a lot more possible, collaborative kind of, whether it's virtual offices or collaborative tools, is making the whole digital nomad thing so much better.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to come on to that, and I'll run us through some of the risks of digital nomads in a second as well. But I think companies, obviously, in the middle of COVID, there was a lot of people heading home for the lockdowns or getting stuck, and it was just kind of accepted. I had a friend who went back to Italy, no problems, no questions asked in one of the major lockdowns, came back, wanted to go back again just recently. Nothing had really changed. They weren't all in the office again or anything, but the company had started getting sort of clued on to these risks and some of the potential implications of a digital nomad, and it was a lot harder for him to get approval just to go back for 3 to 4 weeks. So, I mean, the interesting thing is that despite the large growing number of sort of digital nomads, very few organizations actually have any sort of formal policies that are around this. They might have like a working from home policy, even that's quite rare. But a lot of cases for digital nomads are people having a conversation with just their immediate boss, going off and almost having this don't ask, don't tell approach to it. Yeah. As long as I log in and I do my job, do you care where I am? That's okay, although not really, because it leaves the firm and the employer open to a lot of sort of potential issues, which I think is starting to become things companies really need to be looking at.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we discussed earlier before the show is the fact that it actually, if you do this for a certain length of time, you could actually get your company into trouble because you all of a sudden have an entity in another country, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't even and if you're doing it just with your line manager kind of saying it's okay just as long as you get the job done, then the bigger organization doesn't even know what's happening. I think there's two quick scenarios which complicate it a little bit more. If you think about the fact that if I go on holiday and I check my emails while I'm on holiday, am I doing work? And am I transgressing my visa that I have? If I have a holiday visa and I check my emails, am I doing work in that country? So that's A. Or the other way around, if I come to London to work in the head office or in the London office, but I want to also holiday while I'm there, is that a problem? Is it, and what would you tell? What do you tell the person, the visa or the immigration officer at the airport? What are you here to do? Well, I'm here to go on holiday, but I might check my emails every now and then.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem. I think back to your other point, it's one of the things I find almost funny. Obviously, for a company, it's a bad thing, but digital nomads can accidentally establish a permanent entity, a permanent establishment, sorry, in a country by working out of there without their employer realizing. And your employer can then break employment law in that country that they didn't know they had a permanent establishment in. And then all of a sudden there's all of that issue, cost, time, legality to deal with. So companies really need to obviously take a look at this. The other consideration, obviously, that starts to come into it is cybersecurity. If you've got an employee logging in at a cafe in India, is that opening up your company servers, basically? Is that opening a backdoor? There's a lot of things. I also just wanted to quickly touch on, and I guess we're going to look at having a lot bigger conversation to this, but I just wanted to raise a point of what companies can sort of do when they're starting to take a look at this. Like to the questions you raised of, can I go on a trip and answer my emails even though I'm on holiday? Nobody knows is the interesting part at this point. We're so far ahead that you really need to speak to sort of a legal advisor and start to put a policy in place. The CEO of Morgan Stanley, James Gorman, recently said, if you want to get paid New York rates, you work in New York. None of this I'm in Colorado working in New York and getting paid like I'm in New York. Sorry, that doesn't work. So some companies are taking quite like a hard line with how they're dealing with the sort of digital nomads and the remote work, but other companies are obviously also using it as a benefit. So, I mean, just some general advice, I guess, or some things to think about for companies. They need to start looking at putting policies and processes in place, but these will obviously also vary a lot by industry. So some of the recommendations is, first off, identify if you have digital nomads. As we mentioned before, there's a lot of people who could be working from anywhere and you just don't know it. I actually heard of a case where an employee went away back to India for a few days, got stuck there based off the COVID lockdown, couldn't get out, and then called up his employer and said, hi, can you please pay for my hotel? I'm stuck in India and I need to work from here. And he goes, what are you doing in India? So he obviously hadn't told anyone. So first step, find out if you have any digital nomads. And then you need to start looking at drawing up an agreement. You need to specify that these people are the telecommuters, as you mentioned, and that they are employees and are technically located where the company is. And then there's a whole bunch of other terms you can start to look at that, again, seek legal advice. But you've got options of putting in restrictions on the amount of time they can spend traveling. You've got options on putting things like no-fly zones in. So if there are countries that have particular laws based off your employee working there, it might just be easier to put them on a no-fly list and then remove a lot of that risk, really, in sort of stepping into those regulations and implications of those sorts of countries. But
I mean, I think it's exactly what you're saying. I mean, we have that's the whole thing with the service offering that's out there with immigration specialists, is actually go and seek out, because there are advantages of having digital nomads. Sure, it is happier staff, whatever it is, and different worldviews, all of these various things.
Even what Anna said in tapping into the talent pool is so difficult to find the right talent. And if you can open yourself up with these sorts of programs, you open yourself up to a bigger talent pool.
And we were in the chat. We were talking about Susanna's there from Greece in the audience, and she was saying that or Cheryl also mentioned that the law is it's about to happen before the end of the year. We were thinking of having one of our partners, Jean-Paul, on from Malta, where they've just released a new law, and the laws are catching up. The laws are trying to do that, but they're not also restrictive when it comes to this. It's just trying to regulate and governments trying to almost offset some of the losses they're making by less tourism and trying to get something back from there. There's certain areas and countries, obviously, that are seeing this as a huge benefit for them, is if they can ease the laws and the visa options they can get more revenue into their country. They're less worried about taxing people on the fact that they're earning money elsewhere and living in Bali, for example. As long as you're taking the money you're earning and spending it in Bali, it's helping
Yeah.
the community. And just one interesting thing is that when you look at digital nomads right now, most of the digital nomads are coming from kind of
Developed
difficult to say
Western
first world,
countries.
but
Yeah.
established Western countries that have much better passports. Because if you
Yeah.
got a UK passport, you can enter more than 100 countries without a visa, right? Visa-free kind of entry.
Yeah,
Whereas
so along those
if you
lines, yeah.
if you have a South African passport, you need a visa just to go to the toilet. I don't know, but you know you need there's lots of different. I think I read that in Indian passport you only can get into 6 different countries without a visa. So
Yeah.
it is more prevalent in those countries. And some of the stats that I've looked at, countries that are offering really cool visa opportunities are islands and beautiful weather where people might want to come to, and countries that actually need the revenue and they're making it easier for you to do that.
Yeah, I think traditionally digital nomads have focused on your Latin America countries, your Caribbeans. Obviously, part of the benefit of going from the developed Western countries is the lifestyle and the cost of living in these sorts of places. So it's looked at as a bit of a sort of geo arbitrage. Get paid your UK wage, but go live in Panama for the cost of living. But it's definitely something countries need to do and can take advantage of. I mean, the Harvard Business Review interviewed or surveyed adult Americans and basically asked, are you considering becoming a digital nomad the next 2 to 3 years? 19 million of them said yes. 45 million of them said maybe. Now, obviously, people don't really, it's a big step to uproot and move your life and start traveling. But even if a fraction of that's millions of people looking to travel around the world. Why wouldn't you invite some of that, money into your economy and so forth? And we've obviously looked at some of the countries, and to be honest, we'll probably run out of time to go through too many of them, but this is definitely a topic we want to continue to investigate. I know I spoke about Mauritius in the Great Country Debate in a previous episode and the benefits of doing business there, but they've also come out with a premium visa. Some are calling them digital nomad visas. So Croatia is issuing digital nomad visas, for example, but Mauritius has come out and it's free. There's no cost. All you need to do is prove your plans, prove that you have a job, and prove that you have health insurance, and you're in. And there you are. Amazing. Living the life in Mauritius.
Amazing. And Mauritius, not, and you last time you also mentioned the weather. It's not a bad place, And,
exactly.
And
I've almost sold myself on moving. Yeah.
The countries that I looked at as well was mainly in the Caribbean, and Antigua and Barbuda as one country. They do a 2-year visa where you just need to show that you have $50,000 worth of annual income, which is not insignificant, and that you have insurance. Bermuda, for example, there's no minimum income. Your visa costs $263. Enter, come and work there, and bring your business. And again, just different lifestyles. I know Bali's looking at it. Bali's kind of, they haven't implemented it yet, but it's really on the cards. And there again, it looks like it's going to be a 5-year visa with no tax on income outside of Bali, but come and live in our beautiful place and earn, And I think with the advancement of the of the internet and advancement of everything, it's going to just become more and more prevalent.
Yeah, I've seen. I can't find it was in the Czech Republic. Their visa, it's a little bit more complicated to get, but all you have to do is pay about $80 per month in local taxes. And then cities like Dubai have a really good virtual working program. It is decent salary, so it's a minimum $5,000 US per month, but other than that, you just need health insurance and you're in. And they've got a stamp of approval for safe travel from the World Travel and Tourism Council. Like they're really pushing this as a great option. And if you're looking more sort of European way, Estonia is another great option. They're one of the first countries to come out with an e-residency. They've also got a digital nomad and freelancer visa, which is super easy to get and can all be done online. So there's a lot of countries still, catching up to this idea, adopting it from others. There's a lot leading the headways. It's a really interesting topic, and we are going to put a panel discussion together with some experts on the subject to dive deeper, because of all the articles and research we did, nobody really had an answer. They're able to flag up the stats, they're able to show these different things that we've talked about, what are the gray areas, what are the risks. But nobody really has the answer. So we'll bring some experts together and start discussing this, because I think, as we always said, the answer is always who's in your network, get some advice, get support, have the right partners behind you, and you can sort of put these sorts of policies and processes together and really be ahead of the curve in it. So definitely stay tuned if you're in for that. I don't know if you had anything else to chuck in there,
Just
Seraj.
to the fact that I'll be dialing in from Bermuda next week. I mean, that's really,
I'll probably be in Mauritius, so don't worry.
Where I'm going to dial in from, but maybe it'll be Bermuda. I don't know.
That's it. Well, we'd never know, would
fun.
we? Take your green screen and well, you'll be setting up permanent establishments for Centuro Global all over the world. Seraj, it's great to chat with you again, and thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Hopefully that was a little bit of an insight into the digital nomad and remote worker world. Obviously, please feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions about it. We've got a network of professionals all around the world who are constantly have their finger on the pulse of these kind of things, so we can certainly help with discussions, whether it's the legal end of creating a policy or the immigration end of the visas or the tax and the payroll. That's what a network's for. We've got someone for everything, so feel free to get in touch. But other than that, we'll tune in again next week. It's been great to have you all here. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m. on LinkedIn. Check us out. If you miss an episode, YouTube and wherever you can podcast, you'll find us there as well. Seraj, thanks for having us. Asma in the background, thanks for the amazing interview, and we'll see everybody again next week.
Cheers.